Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Are we making up a story where there isn't one with the Steelers quarterback competition? Also, did we really learn anything about Bo Nix lighting up backups? And the Falcons look like the NFC South champs on paper. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
There's a battle in Pittsburgh for the quarterback position, and in a preseason game over the weekend against the Buffalo Bills, that battle turned into a pillow fight. Russell Wilson, 5 scoreless series. Justin Fields managed just a field goal in his 5 series. Christopher Carter, who's always ready to battle with us from Locked On Steelers and Locked On NFL, joins me now. Chris, where does this competition, let's call it that, stand right now?
I still don't think it's a real competition. I still think this is just Russell Wilson's job. I've maintained this throughout training camp that when Justin Fields is getting all the reps, it's because they were trying to see as much as they could of Justin Fields before they ultimately just put Russell Wilson in as QB1 and then let him kind of be the guy throughout the rest of the season. Because they want to see if Justin Fields can develop into a long-term answer at the quarterback position, if maybe that they can fix something that the Bears could not. And he has made strides. He's been more consistent. He's been better at his decision-making, better at his footwork. But you haven't seen it translate into live game action in the preseason yet. Granted, it looked like it was translating for Kenny Pickett last year, and then that became that. But I think that what you're seeing right now is this is still an offense that the Steelers are learning. And I've maintained this throughout training camp. You know, I think there's been this presumption that the Steelers offense is going to come together because they do look good in practice. Heck, they looked good in the joint practice against the Bills. You know, I watched them at Acrisure Stadium 2 days before this game, and they blocked their butts off. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren ran all over them. Justin Fields scored touchdowns. Russell Wilson scored touchdowns. And it was just like, oh, okay, this offense. And then none of that showed up in the preseason game. But I think the problem is they're inconsistent. Russell Wilson barely played with the first team during training camp because he strained his calf. And I think the Steelers use that as an excuse to get Justin Fields more reps. And that's where Russell Wilson, I think, you know, it was nice enough for about a week and a half, but now they need to see the first team offense as the first team offense is going to play. That means Zach Frazier at center. That means Broderick Jones at left tackle, not right tackle. And I think all this jumbling around has kind of slowed their progression, but who knows? Maybe I'm off and maybe they'll fix it in 2 weeks and they'll be ready for week 1, but it's certainly a big question in Pittsburgh right now.
Yeah, I think we underestimate sometimes even a change that you're excited about, that there is more of a learning curve to that change than we give credit for. Is it fair to say, Chris, that Justin Fields would have to pretty comfortably outplay Russell Wilson over the next couple weeks to have any chance to actually make this a competition? Like this is Russell Wilson until further notice, as far as you're concerned.
Absolutely. That's the case right now. It'd be different. Like when Justin Fields got in, his legs obviously changed a few things in the Steelers offense. They moved the ball a little bit more, but like, again, they didn't even score a touchdown against the Bills' second and third team defenses. It'd be different if he lit it up and led like 3-4 touchdown drives, then I think that would be a different conversation. And maybe they'd be like, but he's still having problems putting it all together. And I think that they're trusting that Russell Wilson will be able to, because I also don't put a whole bunch of what happened with the first team offense on Russell Wilson. There were maybe like 1 or 2 plays where I thought he could have done, substantially better. But like, I think the biggest problem with the Steelers offense right now is actually its offensive line. Broderick Jones looked really bad at right tackle. There's been talk about he needs to actually play his natural position at left tackle, but because Troy Fautanu hurt, they can't put him at right tackle, and that leaves the other tackle, Dan Moore, at left, and he can't play right tackle. So that's been a jumbling. And then Zach Frazier. Yeah, so there's a lot of things there. And I think when you look at it, like Russell Wilson took 3 sacks, but 2 of those 3 sacks were like, the Broderick Jones got beat badly by Greg Rousseau, and Russell Wilson had to just protect himself to not cause a turnover there. So I think that's what the Steelers really need to fix right now is the offensive line that's supposed to be a lot better. They needed to get better because Broderick Jones played for the second half of the year last year and looked very good at times. And that's what he needs to show he can be. He is dealing with an elbow injury. He has an elbow brace. When I tried to talk to him after the game, he said he had a meeting with his doctor. So, there are those things, but he needs to be able to show that he can be that. And this offensive line needs to show that it can be much better than it has been in the first 2 preseason games.
I can't talk to you and not bring it up, so I will ask it this way. Does what we've seen from this offense over the last 2 preseason games, what you've seen at training camp, being there, does it amplify the urgency at all from the Steelers side to maybe go back to San Francisco and say, hey, we're going to up our offer a little bit for Brandon Ayuk?
I'm not so sure because I don't think wide receiver is the problem right now. The problem, again, this team wants to be a balanced team that can run the football, that can use play action. And you get a Brandon Ayuk, I think the same things happened last night. It wasn't like Van Jefferson wasn't breaking open or George Pickens. George Pickens, I thought, had what was an amazing catch that was just a terrible call. He clearly tapped 2 feet in and they didn't give it to him. But I don't think wide receiver is the problem for the Steelers right now. Would it be nice? Yeah, sure. But again, I don't think they should mortgage their future, give up, a first round pick or even a second round pick. I think what their offer probably is and what, San Francisco isn't accepting right now is probably a 3rd and a 5th or something like that for Brandon Ayuk. And that's probably the highest that they're willing to go. I don't think that this makes it any more urgent because again, wide receiver wasn't the problem. Now, if they were offering like Trent Williams, that might be a different, thing right there. But right now, I think the Steelers, they're focused on trying to fit more of the identity that they've been planning to fit. And I've seen them do it in practice. Heck, I've seen them do it in practice against other teams, but they have to put it on the field in live action. And that's where I think even Mike Tomlin's acknowledging, hey, we got to see it in the stadium.
Stay up to date on the Pittsburgh Steelers all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Steelers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, the Broncos are encouraged after their rookie quarterback's preseason debut. Before we get to that, Kalen Clark broke another record. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with YouTube TV's base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon game out of market. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel anytime. For that $5 bet, you could take a look at an NFL future. FanDuel has lines on which teams will lead the NFL in points, and Patrick Mahomes' team is not favored. FanDuel has the 49ers as the favorites with odds at 5-1. The Lions, second best, 7-1. Chiefs and Eagles tied at plus 750. Don't know why people are so excited about the Chiefs offense this year. I'll be honest, even with Patrick Mahomes. I'll be honest. I'm just being honest. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Kalen Clark just does Kalen Clark stuff. Set another record. She set the mark for assists by a rookie in the WNBA on Sunday as the Indiana Fever beat the Seattle Storm 92-75. Clark notched her 232nd assist. She passed Tisha Penicheiro's previous rookie record of 224 set in 1998. Penicheiro finished her career with the 3rd most assists ever in the WNBA, so Clark is in pretty good company. Clark understands the magnitude of this milestone. She said, if you watch her highlights of Penicheiro, she was definitely a better passer than me. Clark still has 12 games remaining to add to her assist total. Gardner Minshew will open the season as the Las Vegas Raiders starting quarterback. That was an announcement from Antonio Pierce on Sunday. Minshew beat out Aiden O'Connell for the starting job. Pierce said of the decision, it wasn't based solely off of Saturday night. There's a lot of factors, so we feel like Gardner gives us the best opportunity to get off to a fast start, and that's what we're going with. We support him. Our team's behind it. Our staff's behind it. The organization's behind it. The Raiders open the 2024 season at the Los Angeles Chargers in week 1. Let's see if they can get a win behind it. Over on the diamond, the Yankees and Tigers put on a dramatic show in extra innings for the Little League Classic.
I thought it was fun. Yes. I mean, the game definitely left a real sour taste in my mouth at the end of it, honestly.
Well, yeah.
I think it gives me a little bit of faith in today's children, because all you do all the time is hear about how no one's out playing baseball anymore, and no kids kids don't like baseball, and then you see something like this where there's kids obsessing over getting Garrett Cole's autograph and everything. So that gives me a little bit of faith. But I don't know. Maybe I've got that weird sports fan disease where I let sports control my emotions a little too much. Probably definitely is true.
It's because you're still in your 20s. I did that in my 20s too. You learned I couldn't leave this game feeling positive or seeing any positive note, because you lost the game that you should have won.
And the Astros are rolling thanks to a great starting pitching performance.
The White Sox got framborized today.
Yeah, the Astros have won 10 of their last 11 games. They are 11 games over 500 for the first time this season. Over their last 11 games, the Astros pitchers have combined to record a 2.25 ERA, 25 earned runs, and 100 innings pitched with 114 strikeouts, and they're only allowing a 167 opponent batting average. So they are doing a job, and we're about to have some good news about Justin Verlander. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So the rotation is not the problem.
The good news for the Denver Broncos, rookie Bo Nix looked the part against the Green Bay Packers in the second preseason game. He went 8 for 9 for 80 yards and a touchdown, had another touchdown taken off the board when he was past the line of scrimmage. Sarah Benninger from Locked On Broncos joins me now. And Sarah, the bad news, if there is bad news, is it was done exclusively against Packers backups. So what can we actually learn about Bo Nix from this showing in the preseason?
Well, I think a lot of it is just watching him run that Sean Payton offense and seeing him get to the right spots with the football, making plays, getting out of certain situations. Like we saw him get out of the 1st and 20, converting a first down, just really doing what he did in the first preseason game. I think pretty much every time he's had the ball, whether he was running with the 1s or the 2s, they've scored, whether a field goal or touchdown. So it's executing the offense. It's getting to spreading the ball around to different receivers, doing all the things that you kind of hoped you would see him do based on what we're hearing out of practice. And he's really doing that.
The one thing we haven't really seen him do is push the ball down the field with any sort of consistency. Now, he's been very accurate underneath. He's made good decisions. How much would you like to see that? Is that something you feel like you need to see as we move toward the regular season? Because in all likelihood, he's not going to just be able to dink and dunk his way to enough points to win every week.
Right. I mean, Sean Payton compared him to a golfer earlier this offseason. You ain't going golfing without a driver, right. Or you have to have it. And so I think that's something that's certainly got to be in his bag. I think even in this game against the Packers, we saw him kind of push it down a little bit more than we did in that first game against the Colts. The throw to Tim Patrick, the throw to Cortland Sutton, those throws were a bit deeper than I think he took any opportunities with in that Colts game. But at the same time, you're right. I mean, we want to see those timing plays where he's, throwing the ball 30 plus yards down the field. And so I think that will come. And I hope, obviously, I don't know how much we'll see him in the third preseason game. Honestly, I think he's going to get named the starter after this. And so I don't know if he's going to play in the preseason. So we may have to wait to see that until the regular season.
We saw Broncos starters and key rotation players well into the third quarter of this game. What do you make of Sean Payton's attack here when we're seeing a lot of teams going, one drive, maybe no drives? The Packers sat 30 plus players who are contributors on their team. What did you think of this tone from Sean Payton?
Yeah, it really is interesting, isn't it? I mean, you see like Marvin Mims out there and you're wondering, well, what did Marvin do or not do? What is he supposed to be doing? And we're not seeing him return kicks and punts, so we know he's going to be doing that eventually. But what are we? And then the quarterbacks aren't necessarily giving the receivers too good of a look. So I think it's all about these guys getting into, some of them in new schemes, obviously, some of them taking on expanded roles, like Mims, for example. I mean, he's taken on a bigger role this year than he had last year with Jerry Jeudy in the building. So hopefully it's some of that. Hopefully it's just getting those extra reps. But I kind of cringe, when you see some of those guys still out there at that point in a preseason game, especially if it's, you're a team like Denver right now, where the roster is not exactly all proven guys. You want to have your best guys available to you. So I don't mind it, I guess, but it does make you cringe just a little bit.
Is it meaningful to you that, by all accounts, the Broncos showed out against the Packers in joint practices, and then you see the starters go out and, again, albeit against backup players, but that's what you want to see your starters do against backup players? Is it meaningful to you that this is how the Broncos looked against a team that we expect to be a playoff team in 2024?
Yeah, I expected the Packers to come into Denver, that deep wide receiver room, testing a young defensive backfield, and we saw that test pretty well passed, I think. From what I was hearing out there at practice, it sounded like the Broncos DBs held their own against that deep group. And then going up against Jordan Love, obviously the highest paid quarterback in the league, you want to see your defense and your defensive front get after him, put pressure. Looked like Nick Bonito got a little too close there at practice, but I think that's what you want to see. You want to see the Broncos, they stunk in the trenches last year on both sides of the ball. Like, you want to see that D-line go up against, even though I know the Packers have a few moving parts on the offensive line, you want to see the D-line kind of go out there and put somebody on their back. And so I think you do take quite a bit out of it. And we heard Sean Payton, Matt LaFleur both kind of talking about how it's as valuable to them as preseason reps, these game reps. And so I think that's why those Packers players didn't play, because those reps were so valuable. So you do take something from it, especially for a team like the Broncos right now. Like Cody and I have been talking about all offseason. They've been, counted as the worst team in the league, favorites for the number one pick in the draft, 5.5 wins over under, all those things. You'll take any wins you can get, I suppose.
Stay up to date on the Denver Broncos all year by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Broncos on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Falcons look like the best team in the NFC South. The Falcons have made a bunch of additions in an effort to make it back to the postseason. Locked On NFL host Lauren Cox and David Harrison discuss whether it makes them favorites to win the NFC South.
There's definitely still a level of proving here. And I think I would assume we're both, and probably most people are, of the idea, like, it's either the Buccaneers or the Falcons. Like, they're the conversation right now. The Panthers aren't there yet. A lot of people have a lot of doubts about the Saints. Maybe I'm being too harsh on them, but I really don't see things going well in New Orleans this season. So it's a matter of like, okay, can Atlanta surpass where Tampa was last season? Will Tampa be able to repeat? Because I have questions about both of them. And so I think like Tampa to me still needs to prove that, like, okay, they can keep up with what they did last season. And that wasn't like them peaking with everything going their way with Baker and Dave Canales. And now Dave Canales is gone. Liam Cohen is in. Like, would they be able to still get the same Baker? Or was that kind of like one year where things came together as great as they could, and that was as far as they could go? And now, like, I think Atlanta has the potential to be at least a 9-win team, assuming Kirk Cousins stays healthy. But you've got the quarterback, you've got the offensive coordinator, you've got all the weapons that have been there the whole time. And now you add these pieces to the defense. Like, that feels like a first place NFC South playoff team. And I think the Buccaneers, to me, still have to reprove a little bit of like, okay, because last year was a little bit of an overachievement for them in the first place. So prove to me that wasn't purely overachieving, and that's actually as good as this team is. And then they made some nice additions as well, not to overlook them. But like, I think both these teams have to prove it. And I would put my money on the Falcons right now.
I understand it. On paper, adding Justin Simmons and Matthew Judon only adds to the appeal of this Falcons team. You put Kirk Cousins in this, it is a huge quarterback upgrade from what they had last year. And you go, okay, now they're rolling. Except the team that won the division last year won a playoff game against the defending NFC champs, and then went toe-to-toe with the Detroit Lions. That team is still in their division. And in fact, that team might be even better because it's Baker Mayfield with another year to gel with those receivers, a draft class that they're excited about. Why are we sleeping on the Bucs in all of this? They still have players, elite players like Mike Evans. Mike Evans, for as excited as you want to be about Drake London and all the skill guys in Atlanta, Mike Evans is demonstrably better, materially and markedly better than any receiver the Atlanta Falcons currently roster. What are we talking about here? Mike Evans and Chris Godwin together are a better duo than anything the Falcons have on their roster. And I don't know that it's particularly close. And then defensively, where this Falcons team was dreadful on paper before Justin Simmons and Matthew Judon are added, are those guys 30 plus each of them Are they going to be true difference makers this year? I don't know why we would be convinced of that. I would pick the Falcons if I had to pick today. But if I had to wager, if I had to put my hard-earned money on it, I would be looking at the Buccaneers to win this division because I don't understand why the Falcons are the prohibitive favorite to win the South. And finally, as weird as it is for Hassan Reddick to ask for a trade from a team he's never suited up for, Randy Gregory one-upped him by never showing up for the Bucs and now getting his release. Tampa and Gregory mutually agreed to release the longtime pass rusher on Sunday. Coach Todd Bowles said of the news, "Can't miss what you never had." If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, certainly seems like the 49ers will walk through this season to another division championship. Will they? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.